something that was weighing down on me after the event of earlier this morning. Basically, I was at work and a young man that had started working in the company not that long ago basically got fired first off and then got arrested. I guess what had happened was we were working on repairing the concrete of a building, the external concrete, and the resident of the suite of, the window right beside from where the kid was working, I was looking outside watching the young man work, and as he was working, I guess the little old lady watched as the kid had reached into his pocket, pulled out a small glass pipe with weed in it, and lit right up and just started reefing on for a few minutes, just took a little hoot break, a little toke stop. Whatever the kid does is none of my business and stuff, but I kind of started thinking about it. This is on the Wednesday. Now Friday we got paid, and I would imagine a good chunk of his paycheck probably went into enabling the continuation of his habit or his addiction to weed. Now, what people are addicted to, it's impossible for me to give a shit about, because that's you, that's not me, and that's not even what this conversation is about. That's not what this podcast is about. So, whatever. But what I do want to talk about and thinking about, we all have our addictions. I have my own. But the thing I want to talk about is the fact that the hard-earned money that we make every single day, is it really worth what we're putting it into? And on that note, I kind of wanted to talk about a couple things, but I guess the big picture are fruits. Not just our income, but the thing we're producing, the thing we're working towards. Basically, what our profit is and what is becoming of our profit. I guess a better way of saying it is, what is the why? The why of what we're doing. What's the reason? What's the cause? What's the goal? What's going to be of the goal? Why? What is the big picture of why we're doing something so minuscule? Or, depending on how largely you're looking at it in life, why do you get up and go to work? Why do you take time out of your everyday to pursue something or to actively repeat something? I mean, realistically, time and time again, I've seen that unless, and this is something very central that I was thinking about today, unless the act itself is the profit, then chances are you're not going to be doing it for very long, or chances are you're going to be doing it for a good chunk of your life, but you're going to be miserable doing it, very, very quickly, and you're going to keep being miserable, but you're just going to be in a rut unless what you're doing is the profit itself. Yes, we do certain jobs to be able to survive in life. Granted, I wouldn't be doing construction if I didn't have bills to pay. I didn't have, mouths and lives that are relying on me bringing in a steady income every day. And that's fine. I get it. I care very much about my family. It's extremely important to me to be able to provide for my wife and my upcoming child. That's fine. I have no complaints about that. I do, I get up every morning happy to go to work because I know that, there's a reason I'm doing it. That's the why of that. That being said, in my journey to partially look out for myself, I have to do something that's not only going to provide for others, but it's going to be, the work itself is going to be not just beneficial to me, but it's going to soothe me. It's going to be you know, it's going to bring me comfort knowing that I'm doing it, you know. The act itself is going to be laboring whatever the job is. A lot of people say, for instance, in the case of a musician or an athlete, you know, they say for the longest time you have to pay your dues. You have to really do it because you love doing it, because you won't be profiting from it for a long time. Well, I say bullshit. If you really enjoy doing it, you really don't mind doing it for scraps and nothing. You're really doing it because you enjoy doing it. And regardless of how much you're making, if anything at all, your reward is the fact that you get to do it. You know, you're being given the opportunity to do that. And, you know, that itself is a reward. And when you're doing it for that reason, I believe the people that are really successful in those industries, it's because they're doing it for that reason. It's because being able to kickbox someone, or being able to, you know, wrestle someone, being able to play guitar, drums, etc., is the reward itself. Then those are the people that are going to be doing the longest, and are going to be able to do it in flying colors, because it's not going to be a chore to them. It's not going to be because they want to be rich and famous one day. They're doing it for the love of the sport, for the love of music, for the love of the act, you know what I mean? And that itself is what ultimately leads you to success. And those are the people who become the most successful. Those are the people who have success the longest. When the act is the profit, then you become so much more fruitful in it. But then there's the other scenario when, and unfortunately, this is the, oh God, what's the percentage of it? I want to say at least a solid 85 to 90% of the people out there, when, oh God, and I really do feel bad, because you know, first and foremost, I'm definitely guilty of this myself. When you do something for the sake of having a big paycheck at the end of the week, which you're really just getting to feed something else, especially when that something else isn't something substantial, or whatever the case may be, that's when your fruits become your downfall. That's when your profits become your own demise. There's an old saying that goes, you die by your own sword because you didn't know how to wield it. Well, I mean, come on, like, basically, if you don't know what your own aspirations are, if your job isn't your aspirations, you're never gonna reach it. Now, this isn't about chasing your dreams, because that's a whole topic in itself. You know, they're two very similar things. They're two almost identical conversations. But what this is not, you know, it's not about chasing your dreams, because obviously we all have responsibilities, and that's a whole topic in and of itself. We all have our responsibilities, and we all have to, you know, go to work and provide, and, you know, we have to, you know, you can't leave our people hanging and all this stuff. But what I can say is, if you're not going out of your way to chase what your dreams were, you know, if you're not doing something while meanwhile forgetting what your purpose in life is, then you're quickly going to become miserable. And unfortunately, no matter how, you know, financially successful, no matter how wealthy your fruit giver is, then the fruit itself is gonna occupy your mind with harmful things. It's gonna be your own downfall. It really is. And honestly, that to me is one of life's biggest mistakes. It really is. When the fruit is the downfall, because, and I know I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off, because I myself have friends that deal with addictions and, you know, this and that, and I'm guilty of it myself, because that was me at one point in life, is the fact that you get up early in the morning and you go and you bust your ass off for 8 hours every single day for anywhere between 2 weeks to a month, and, you know, you get yourself a nice little paycheck, and you go and waste a lot of it in feeding a harmful addiction. What is success? A lot of people would argue that success is simply the very fact that you didn't fail. But to me, it's hard to say, oh, you don't fail, that you haven't failed, unless you've really achieved the ultimate experience, the ultimate form of life, your ultimate high. What's the point that makes you happy? At what point do you say, wow, I can't possibly be happier? I can't possibly, reach a level higher than where I'm at right now. And it's crazy to think about that because, not a lot of people get to see it. Not a lot of people get to live it. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think that a lot of people really even know what that would be, because either they haven't dreamed big enough to foresee what the possibilities of that is, and most people never ever get to experience it. I can personally say that there's been very few moments in my life in which I have, lived real success. And it's hard to say what it really is, because I don't know if it's a state of mind. I don't know whether it's a state of comfort. I don't know if it's a state of relief, the best way I can describe it is it's almost like the feeling of being in a trance. There's different variations of it, but it's all pretty similar. Like, it's basically that feeling of ultimate reach, like there's no other moment like it. And if you want to reach success, then you have to live towards it. You have to live for it. You have to chase it. You have to be there. You have to live your life as if living in the moment. And then, because only then will, the moment actually be successful. Whatever it is you're trying to do, then you have to shoot for it. I can only give you guys one instance, one example of what I mean by success. I haven't had a whole lot of them, but it's pretty gnarly. I guess I'll go to before, when I used to play music, and both unfortunately and fortunately for me, that was my only source of income at the time. And I guess being that vulnerable, that lacking of materialistic things, kind of put me in a position where I can actually reach it for some odd reason. I couldn't even explain it to you, but I'll try to describe it as best I can, just so you can get a glimpse of what I'm talking about. Sort of. It's gonna be more of a spiritual thing, if you will, what I'm about to describe to you. But hopefully, you can transcribe that into a physical or mental or even materialistic parallels. Like, there's so many ways you can take it and have it work for you. Now, I don't want to sound all philosophical or whatnot. It definitely illustrates what I mean by the trance that is success. A lot of people talk about reaching paradise, talk about reaching inner heaven, and this to me definitely showcases that in a very transmatic sort of way. I don't know. I used to play music, whether in my own bands or doing sort of session work. Those of you who play music will understand what that is. And I remember I was playing a show with one of my bands. This is years ago, so many years ago. And at the time, I was, one of the many times when I was going through some real hardship and emotionally was pretty broken down or whatnot. And so I was doing a show, and we started doing a ballad. And this case in particularly, I remember quite vividly. And towards the end, the song itself kind of broke off into a long guitar solo, which I was playing. And it must have been a combination of the atmosphere and the sound of the guitar and the sound of the big dynamic music and everything and the synergy. was playing this scorching solo that must have durated for quite a few minutes, and you know, I got so invested in it, just so engulfed and embedded in it, and it got to a point where, you know, my legs kind of gave out, and I was down on my knees basically at one point, and I can't even explain to you what happened, because I can look down onto my fingers, and I can see sweat dripping off my forehead, and I can see almost like tears coming from my eyes, and and oddly enough, a little bit of drool leaving my mouth and just spilling onto my hands that are still on the guitar. I can see my hands that are still hitting the strings, but at the same time, my mind is in a trance. My spirit is in a trance, and I've almost like kind of left my own existence, and I'm looking at this from a different being. And you know, at that point I was in an ultimate high. And I should probably clarify, I had not been drinking, and I had not been doing any drugs up until then, you know, up to that point during that day. So whatever it was totally some other connection that wasn't like an external substance. And that point in particularly was such a revelation, because I had been to so many things similar to that before, and it felt great. It felt amazing. But at that point, you know, I didn't realize that, you know, you didn't have to be in a religious environment to be spiritually connected. I didn't realize that you had to be in a church or in a congregated setting to connect with a higher power, to connect with God, if you will. And, you know, say what you may about, you know, what you think about the whole distorted Bible controversy, or whatever you may think about religion and all that stuff. But at that point, I definitely connected with something, and I definitely engulfed myself in either someone or something that was beyond me. And for some reason, nothing, you know, not to quote Metallica or nothing, but definitely nothing else mattered. You know, nothing that was around me, nothing that was going on with me or on me or around me, nothing of that mattered to me. Nothing of that, you know, was even remotely relevant to me, because I was just in the moment, you know. And that to me is a success. And there was nothing but me and my spiritual connection, and how I was transporting myself into that state through nothing but me and a piece of wood with strings on it. And I've witnessed that moment through so many times, just so many times, whether it was playing guitar, whether it was drumming, you know, I've felt something similar to that in doing martial arts, and just activities that involve that, where I can just forget about everything else, and the only thing that mattered was what I was doing, how I was connecting with it, how it was taking me somewhere where I could never go anywhere else unless I was doing the thing I loved. And that's what was so great about it. It didn't matter to me what I was gonna get back from it, because as long as I was doing it, I was already being fulfilled. I really, really was. And so what are you guys doing? What are you doing that's, you know, taking you to what paradise means to you? I mean, there's so many levels of it, and there's so many variations of it. You don't necessarily have to go into an abnormal state. You don't have to go to an extraordinary trance or whatever it may be. What's the thing that makes you feel like you're gonna be okay in life? And I would encourage everybody, much like I constantly say, you know, challenge it, explore it, you know, don't settle for anything less than that. You can still be responsible for your family. You can still be responsible for your obligations as an adult. You can still be on top of your everyday situation and still be chasing, whatever your dream is, whatever your high is, whatever your goals are, whatever, fill in the blank is. It's so gnarly to finally, to get to see that, to get to experience it. Why not make it the ultimate goal to make that your everyday life at some point? Who gives a shit how old you are? Who gives a shit how unable the world sees you? Who gives a shit how physically maybe set back you are because of a physical impediment? Nobody and nothing should hold you back from that. There's so many cases in the past of people doing amazing things. I would imagine you wouldn't have to go too far. You go on YouTube, you see that kid playing the piano, playing all these bunch of Beethoven pieces with his toes, and like, who the hell does that? Who does that? That guy does, because who the fuck was anyone to hold him back? No one is gonna hold anybody back. Fuck everybody else, So that's all it is about. That's what living is about. I get it, you want to keep everybody happy, but where do you start? Where's your end? Fuck fate? Where's your destiny, I continue to chase that. I every day continue to chase that. I get discouraged a little bit sometimes, but I'm human, just like every single one of us. We should be striving to chase that. I'm not going to settle for having played music in the past. And hopefully some other day I'm gonna touch on something I posted many years ago based on that. But who cares about what you did in the past? What matters is, where are you going today? Where are you going now? Where is your spirit taking you? Where are your physical feet taking you? What are you doing? Where are you mentally? Where do you need to be? Where do you need to go to be at your own personal paradise? What is it, for starters? And how are you going to get there? And I'm going to leave you with that. I know where mine is, and I know where I'm going. At least I have a pretty damn good idea. And I'm going to continue to explore and chase that. I would encourage you to do the same thing. So hopefully I haven't fucking bored the shit out of you.